So guys, today we're going to talk a little bit more about development. We're going to talk about what are toddlers like, and have any of you guys had any interactions with toddlers? So in general, we're talking about toddlers. We're generally talking about ages 2 to 4, but we're also just going to kind of extend it to early school age. That's going to kind of all the way go up to 5 and 6. Of course, older kids are going to be a little more developed and younger are going to be less, but we're just talking about, in general, the toddler age of like preschool, okay? So, you guys have had some interaction with toddlers. Do you guys like toddlers? Mm-hmm. You do? Mm-hmm. What is there to like about toddlers?
So adorable. They're adorable.
They are cute. Why? Why are they cute? Because they're small.
They're small, like, I don't know. Just cute.
What else could be likable about toddlers?
They're communicative at some point in their toddlerhood.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're different from infants, right? In that they have more language, right? Okay.
They don't like hide their emotions. They're very like expressive and like
Very
smiley or very like stubborn.
Very expressive, right? What else about toddlers do you guys like?
They're more aware and they ask more questions.
So there's a curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity.
Right? Okay, so that's something to notice.
They're simple.
They are. They can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be very complex.
Like their thought process and stuff.
Their thought process is simple.
Yeah.
Oh, their thought process is in some ways very simple, but in some ways very different from ours, right? So we'll talk a little bit about what that means and how you can communicate with them in a way that would be more effective. Because if you try as an adult, would that be effective? If I try to reason with a toddler? Do they have reason? Not yet. Not in the adult way.
Not
right?
linear reasoning anyway.
Not linear reasoning. So what can be frustrating about toddlers? Upsetting, frustrating, annoying.
Ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the opposite side, right? So like
Why?
they are curious, but that turning it off is
They don't turn
could be
it off.
hard. They don't. Yeah. So what else?
I mean, they can be stubborn, like terrible twos, like
What are the terrible twos?
Tantrums.
tantrums, stubbornness.
Why
they
are
just don't
toddlers
listen.
tantruming?
I don't know. They want something.
Because
They
they want something.
Sometimes they don't know how to express what they want.
Sometimes they don't know how to express what they want. That's true. There's something really important happening in development right at this time that actually explains why they're so difficult. Because the thing that's happening when you're becoming a toddler, when you're transitioning from an infant to a preschooler, to going to school age, is you're learning to become an individual. You're learning that I am my own person, I have my needs, I need to express them, I have my wants, and that might be different from what mommy and daddy say, or what from adults say. And I am now no longer going to just, mommy and daddy say it's time to eat or drink or sleep or whatever. I have my own desire now. As an infant, yeah, they have their own desire, but their parents are scheduling everything, right? As an infant, as a toddler, now it's like, now I realize that I have my own and I'm going to express it. And so they're sort of like, in a sense, actually, from a developmental standpoint, they call this sort of the early adolescence, okay? So a fun name that we use in my clinic is like when we have a very strong-willed 3-year-old, we call him or her a 3-nature. Because that's essentially very similar developmental-wise. They're learning to express their own individuality, but just in a different time period. Okay, so we kind of go through 2 of these in our developmental life. Okay, these individualized. I get to figure. I'm my own person. I have my own whatever. We do this in toddlerhood and in adolescence. Okay. In elementary school,
So
usually.
toddler would be up to what? At what age you could say that?
Typically, usually about 4.
Up 4.
Yeah, maybe 5. Yeah. It's all sort of.
I'm trying to think of my grandson and daughter.
Yeah.
See where they fit there.
Yeah. Typically, the idea is that by the time they're entering kindergarten and school age, So 5, 6. By the time they're entering that, they're sort of transitioning out of that three-majorness. But, it's, of course,
And they're called
that's
children
not.
at that point, or?
Yeah, then we call them school-aged children. And, school children. Yeah. That's the next stage we'll talk about
Okay.
in a few weeks. So, okay, so just brainstorming before we get into the paper. What would be the things, the way that you talk to a kid like this that has these characteristics, a toddler, about God? What would be your guess if your own conversations with a toddler, or just from what you know about toddlers, what do you think their questions about God would be?
Where is he?
Where is he?
Right.
Absolutely. What do you tell a toddler? Where is God?
I mean, I have an answer. It's just
Answer.
you're going to tell me. Well, how do you tell them? And then I'm stumped.
It's tough.
So I would say God is up in heaven.
God is up in heaven.
Heaven is, I could point, I could say in the sky, but I'm not sure if that's really getting at the heart of the matter here.
Let's continue this conversation. Let me just show you the video that I found that I really like. I think it really exemplifies kind of can you guys actually see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this kind of is a pretty typical example of like a kid's kind of understanding questions of God. My guess, and I don't know how old this kid is, I just stalked him on YouTube. I don't know anything about him except that he is a toddler. My guesstimate is he's probably like around 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hi, Jackson. Who are you yelling for? God. God? Where's God at? Up in the sky. Oh.
Up in the
What
sky.
did you want to tell him? I want to tell him that where's he from? You want to know how far away he is? How far away do you think he is? Way up in the sky. What does God do? Does he... Oh, he plays with his mommy? What's Jesus' mommy's name? Mary. Mm-hmm. Does Jesus love you? Yes. He does? You want me to call him? What do you want to tell him? You want to know how far away he is? Remember, he's way up above the clouds. But he can hear you if you talk to him. He does. Like when we say our prayers at night, he always hears anything you tell him. Okay, I want to talk to him on his phone. Oh, you want to talk to him? I'm going to have to figure out how to make that work. Love you, Jackson. Love you.
That's why we love toddlers.
Okay, so what did you guys notice about this? What do you notice about this kid and his understanding about God, where he is, how to talk to him?
I'm intrigued, but he was asking how far he is up high.
He wants to know how
And
far.
that kind of, I wouldn't think he would think that way.
Oh yeah.
He would probably think, how he looks, but not how far.
Well, I think that is a common question. They want to know. Another way to think about it is they want to know how close God is to them, how accessible God is.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So if he's really high in the sky, then how can? I don't see him. How do I know where?
He really, he still is based in reality. Like he wanted to call God on
Okay.
the phone.
Exactly right. So they talked. My guess is this family talks to God every night, right? They pray every night. So Mom referenced that, but still, when he's like, I want to talk to God, how do I talk to God? I have to do it through a phone, because that's how people talk to people, right? That they don't see, is they use a phone, they call people. So this is kind of a very toddler way of thinking, right? Where you're taking bits and pieces of reality and sort of trying to make sense of them in this puzzle, especially when trying to understand these kind of bigger concepts. Okay, so what would you do? Do you think it would be appropriate to say, okay, let's call God? Hey Jesus, how are you? Or do you say, no, you know what? You don't need the phone. Try to teach him that. What would you do?
The latter way.
Why?
Because you don't want him to grow up thinking that he could just call God and be like, I did this when I was little. Why isn't it working?
Sure. Okay, what do you guys think?
I think I would try without a phone first.
Yeah.
If he seems receptive, then yes. But if he really wants to talk to God on the phone, I don't personally see a problem with trying that.
Bingo. I think that's what I would do too. I think you say like, yeah, you can talk to God on the phone. You can also talk to him anywhere at any time and try to explain that. Again, sometimes when you explain these things using kind of adult rational language, and that's what we have, they're going to sort of interpret it and take it as like, oh, well, then that means the only way I can get to God is if I go on the second story because I'm closer to heaven. And then, that's just the way their minds work. So to kind of understand that that doesn't mean that you're explaining anything wrong or whatever, but this is just the toddler brain, okay? Yeah.
Are you saying that the correct answer is, in fact, when they ask where is God, in heaven? Because I think everywhere might be a better answer.
No, that's my implication, is that it should be everywhere. Yeah, it should be everywhere. Mm-hmm. That God is in heaven and right next to you.
But then when they ask, like, where?
Like I can't see
Or
it.
how can he be?
Then what do you say to the toddler?
Can you see the air?
Is air real?
I don't know, does a toddler really think about air?
Like, are they gonna understand that?
So I think
I feel like that's like getting like very philosophical.
it is.
My
It is.
experience is
Like,
worse, so.
And it depends on the kid, right? Yeah. And some of them may still be confused, but yeah, you also want to be careful about dumbing it down so much that they get stuck in something, so that when they're ready to developmentally increase, they're like, but Jesus is, I can only, like, this issue, but I can only talk to Jesus if it's on my phone, that kind of thing. You don't want that either. So, yes, yeah.
I found out that the kids, the toddlers, they're actually not looking for a precise answer, and they are probably not wants to follow up on that. They need an answer basically at a certain age. Whatever answer you feel reasonable, and
They will remember your answer, though.
they will, but
They will remember your answer.
Sometimes they hold on to it
I'm
for a
not-
long,
hold on to
long
it.
I'm
time.
not saying give them a wrong answer,
Yeah.
but I would say don't think too much. If you say, okay, I'll tell him call God on the phone, they are not gonna question that.
They're not going to question it.
Rationalize that. They just need something
Yeah.
to
Okay,
satisfy.
I understand.
I also find like if you just give them some comfort, giving them an answer, like in my experience, like in the past, if someone they love passed away, like, oh, God is with like Giddo or like with their uncle up in heaven, and they like, oh yeah, God's taking care of them. And like
That can be
they
very
kind of
comforting.
like
Let me just preface though, I agree with you, Uncle Victor. I do think though, for questions where we just do not know the answer, I think it is important that we just say, sweetie, I just don't know the answer to your question. It is important that they can hear from adults also when they truly, sincerely don't know the answer, to say, I don't know. So, for instance, an example might be like, you're standing in a line and you can't really see how long the line is. It's wrapping around. You're at the DMV and it's one of those long lines. And the kid is asking, how long am I going to be in this line? Okay, so you first start by saying like, well, it's probably going to be a while. And they're like, no, I want to know how many, how long. It's like, well, well, it's probably going to be a while. How many minutes? I want to know how many minutes. 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 13 minutes. You don't know exactly, you don't know the minutes, okay? You have no idea because it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30, you don't know. So I think it's okay to say, I don't know when you really don't know. That's not a great example, but do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's okay to say, I don't know. But yeah, if you can, answer the question. All right, let us talk a little bit about how toddlers see the world. Okay, so we're gonna do some true or false. So, first, true or false. Are toddlers self-centered and egotistic in their thinking so that the worldview is viewed entirely from their own perspective? Would you say that's true or false?
Which one's true, which one's false?
Okay, let's do yellow, true, purple, false. Yeah, that is true. That's true. Why is that important as a Sunday school teacher working with toddlers to understand?
And like, if you're trying to like reason with them or something, or like, like however you can, it's gonna be more effective if you put yourself in their shoes.
Absolutely.
Because they can't do the same.
Exactly.
They're not like to that point yet.
I think that's exactly true. I think it's also important to understand because this is one of the most things that's really frustrating about toddlers is that like come on, can't you understand, like, you know, I have a billion things to do and I can't right now play because there's too much going on and you got to give me a break. No, they can't understand because right now all they can think of is I want to play. That's all that they're able to see and understand and imagine. That's their entire world. So can toddlers empathize? Can they actually feel how other people feel or think about how other people are thinking?
I don't think so.
I think to a certain extent.
To a certain extent. And it gets better as you get older, so 5-year-olds is typically when you can start really doing that more effectively, around 5. And it is not a natural thing. So that's something that teachers do and good parents do, is that they train their kids to learn how to empathize. So how do you do that?
Like, actually, if you have an emotion, give it a name.
Absolutely. So you want to give emotions names. You want to you want to ask them questions. How do you think that made me feel? How did that make you feel? How did that make me feel? How did that make your friend feel when you took that toy away from him? How would you feel if he did that to you? Kind of stuff. So you want to challenge them to think about that, and then you want to use the right names for emotions. Okay? Sad, happy, angry, whatever. Okay? Any questions about that concept, egocentric concept? All right. So, next question is, by the time a child is 3 years old, they're able to understand the principle of conservatism. I will teach you what conservatism is right now.
I'm just like, what do you mean?
Yes, I didn't want to. So this is the concept of conservatism. Okay. This is item A. Okay, this is item A. This is item B. Okay. Which one weighs more, item A or item B? Which one has more mass?
They're both the same.
The same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Because it's the same amount of material, it's just a different shape. Okay. You ask, the idea of conservatism is that the principle of conservatism is that it would be the same. Okay? That it's conserved even though it's a different shape. So can toddlers understand this? If we did this to a toddler, would they be able to say that this would weigh the same? Item A and item B would weigh the same? No. No. Absolutely not. So you don't understand. So what would a toddler think weighs more?
This one's smaller.
Why? Because it's smaller.
It's bigger.
It's bigger. Exactly. So usually until about 6 or 7, kids can't understand this. Okay. So this is just a kind of developmental thing that's very, it's from a guy named Piaget that's, he rocked the psych world with that idea. So anyway, any questions about that concept?
How does that impact our?
Yeah. I don't think, I was trying to think, Uncle Victor, about how this might be, the idea of, might be applicable to like kind of Sunday school teaching. But I think I just wanted you to understand this is kind of the way that the toddler mind works, that what you see in front of you is what you get, and the very concrete, okay? Mm-hmm. And so, so this plays a really big role when we're trying to explain things like miracles, when we're trying to explain things like, well, Jesus died and then rose from the dead, and then to explain the idea of death, right? So I want you to imagine if they can't, like their brain, it's not like they're stupid, it's just developmentally their brain is unable to understand that this is the same as this, their brain is unable to do that, then how do you expect them to understand death? Right? And what that means, and the finality of it, and then living again, right? So I guess I think it's important to understand, because there are important things that about our faith and our religion that are better explained in more detail when they're older. They're gonna have questions, okay? And so we have to figure out, we'll learn together how to answer those questions that's developmentally appropriate. You won't answer it the way like, you can for an elementary school kid, because they don't have the cognitive capacity. Their brain is not there yet. Okay. So I think that's why that's important. Number 3, true or false? Toddlers can think about something without it actually being present. Toddlers can think about something. Okay, this is true. You're right. It's called, so that blank there, it's called transductive reasoning. Okay.
Conductive.
Transductive. TRANSDUCTIVE. Inductive reasoning. Okay. So I think this is really important, because on one hand, we're talking about how like they're so concrete, okay? But they also have this imagination, right? They also have this ability to understand that about something, even if it's not necessarily in front of them. So, based on this, can you talk to kids about God if they can't see God? Of course, of course. And it's okay, and kids will understand, even at this age. You can say, we can't see God, but He's around us everywhere. And then you can use other examples, because they have other examples, like the air is a common one. Okay?
There is an age where they cannot do that, or humans are born with that capacity.
To think about things. So that typically can happen around age 2 and 3. So it comes with language. So beforehand, when you really don't have language,
it's like built in, because once they communicate,
Well, when you think about it, it's just because language, it acts as that replacement. It acts as that thing that's not there. You have a word now. You don't have to have an object. You have a word for it. So like I can talk about a fork with a kid that's 2, even though there's no fork present, because they've seen it before, or because they know what the word fork means. They have a definition. So I can talk about God if they have a definition. God is the one who made you and loves you. And they have an idea about who God is, even though there's no object for God. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
if a kid doesn't know the meaning of a word, do you have to show them an image at that point in time, or can you use words to describe what something like that, like say gorilla? Do I explain a gorilla, like big hairy animal that is black and goes?
So your best bet of explaining a new concept is going to be relating it to concepts you already know they have. So whether you're going to use visuals or language, it's going to be related. It's the best thing you're going to be able to do is relating it to
What they already know.
to something they already know. So say you want to explain what a gorilla is. How would you do that to a kid that has never seen a gorilla?
I'd ask if they know what a teddy bear is.
Okay. Do they know what animals are? Okay. They've heard of other animals. So it's an animal, just like a dog is and a cat. Okay. They know what a lion is. Okay. It lives in the same place where a lion lives, in the jungle. Okay. So now they know where it lives. They know it's an animal, just like a dog and a cat. They know that it has hair, just like Baba. Just like it eats bananas, just like you do. So these are the kinds of ways you connect. You introduce a new concept. This is just like. Okay. Number 4. True or false? Toddlers are very impressionable, and their sense of reality is not firm yet. Yes. So that, I think we've been talking about that idea for a while, that their sense of reality is it's really based on their perceptions, meaning that it's based on their sights, sounds, smells, what they're hearing, and it's very impressionable, that it can be very sort of different from day to day, right? So they can be very sure that this is the way things are, and then, you talk to them 10 minutes later, and it's like they have a completely different view of reality, and that's just the toddler brain. Okay. Number 5. Toddlers are very concrete and are unable to understand symbols or use an object to represent something else, such as pretending a broom is a horse. So can toddlers take, can I make this and say we're going to use this as a sword? Can toddlers do that? Of course they can, right? So every day, right? So that pretend play and that ability to use symbols is actually, despite them being very concrete. So I know there's some paradoxes here. We're talking about how concrete they are, but at the same time, they're not. They can sort of take something and pretend play it to be something else. This is really, really important because this is also another way that toddlers learn the best is through play. Okay, the world of the toddler happens through play. So we're going to talk about this just in a second, but if you want to connect with a toddler, if you want to teach them something new, if you want them to learn about God, number 1 best way to do it is to play. So we'll talk about how can you play God, but you need to play with them. Yeah.
Is that why Sunday school teachers use felt boards and stuff?
Yeah. Yes, it's exactly why. That's exactly why. Because it has to be, it's like their language. Their language is play right now. The way their brain is incorporating is through play. Okay. Number 6. Toddlers are more likely to remember concepts they discover on their own. True or false? Yes. And this is called, it's true, and this is called discover learning. This is called discover learning. It's another way that that people learn the best. Usually discover learning works well if you have a little bit of a basis to start with, and then you're kind of building up. But yeah, you want them to be curious and be so you want them to learn what a gorilla is, okay? So then what you do is you take a stuffed animal of a gorilla, they don't know anything about it, and you put it in front of them, just be this is a gorilla, what do you think it likes to do for fun? Where do you think it lives? What do you think it eats? Whatever. Let them kind of discover on their own, and you lead them through it, right? I don't see it has any fins like a fish, so I bet it doesn't live underwater. Do you think it lives underwater? No, it doesn't live underwater. Where do you think it lives? Do you think it lives on, it looks like it has very strong arms that can climb things. What kinds of things do you think it likes to climb? And so they're discovering that it climbs trees. Okay.
And kids have this when they want to discover about fire and
Right. Sometimes learning has dangers too.
I think that's actually a good example. A kid that finds out by himself that fire hurts is going to remember it a lot better than his parents.
that's true to the price.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just okay.
But that is true deal. The kid that discovers on his own will remember it more. Okay, this I think is a very important true or false question. The most important thing for a toddler to understand about God and Jesus is that he died on the cross for them and that he rose from the dead. Is that true or false? So some people think it's true, some people think it's false.
Only me.
So defend your thought process. Why would you think that's the most important thing for them?
Maybe it's not the most, but it's one of the most.
It's core to our faith, right?
Okay,
So
yes.
yes. What about you guys? You think that's what do you think would be the most important then? Or why wouldn't that be important?
Maybe that he's like a friend to them. They can like talk to him and stuff like that.
Yes. So here's the hierarchy from a spiritual developmental perspective of what kids need to learn about God. You start with God as a friend, that he's there for them. Okay. Then that God is love, and that God wants them to love him and love others. So they learn friend first, then love, and then they learn about who Jesus was and his birth and his death and his resurrection. So that's kind of the hierarchy of steps, okay, for what they're developmentally really usually able to learn.
Is that the same as numbers item 6 here? Or
That's a different thing. So you can write that down on the side as your notes because I didn't make space for that. But that is typically the most important thing for them to understand is that God is love and that God is their friend.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the item 6 here. There is a
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, that relates to what you mentioned now, the hierarchy, or a different angle?
No, this is a different angle.
Okay.
Yeah, a different angle. No, so item 6, I'm going to talk more about like methods to use to talk with toddlers about God. These are the things you want to have them learn. These are the concepts of who God is. This is the hierarchy that I'm talking about. Any questions about that, or does that make sense? Why is it important that kids understand that God is their friend and God is love first?
I don't know, maybe for them, like the concept of like somebody that like knows everything about them, but like they don't, I don't know, like that might be a little bit like scary to them. So like maybe they're like, okay, he's like your dad, and like he loves you, and this is a good thing. He's not like a scary person up in the sky, watching over your every move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think that the concept of death and resurrection is an advanced level topic.
When can kids really understand a little bit more about death developmentally?
Maybe 3rd grade.
Around 6 or 7, so for
So
kindergarten,
first?
1st grade.
Okay.
Typically. Some kids are a little more advanced in this because they have to be because of their experiences in life, but in general, that's kind of a typical. Okay, so some things to keep in mind when you're working with toddlers. Toddlers tend to, especially if they're new to you, be a little like really comfortable with you or really scared of you.
Oh, is that
Which
a
one?
question?
It's a question. That was a
Oh.
question. It depends on who's
Yeah.
around, right? It depends, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the toddler, but what does it depend on most? If their parents are around.
Yeah.
Okay, so if their parents are there, they're more likely to be comfortable, and if their parents leave, why is that? That's what we call separation anxiety. Do you know when that starts happening typically?
4.
3. So around age 3. So that's something to keep in mind, right? If you're going to work with preschoolers, and you have to think about how you're going to structure your classroom. I've seen some preschool teachers, they want the parents to leave. That is going to make it difficult in the beginning. Then kids adjust. But know that you're going to have a hard time in the beginning because kids are going to be separating from their parents, okay? Some actually decide I don't want to have to deal with that nonsense, and they just keep the parents in the class. They say, if you want your kid to come, you have to stay. So that's something you will be thinking about if you're going to work with preschoolers, okay? Number 2, typical attention span lasts about how long for a preschooler?
The comment here, it should be how many seconds?
How many seconds? Yeah. No, really. In some ways, this is a very generous.
Yeah, 5
I don't know many kids, but this is kind of what the literature tells you. But yeah, in real life, and the literature says about 10 to 15 minutes, which is a long time.
I feel like 5 minutes or like 2 minutes is more accurate. But
10 to 15 is going to be really, from a practical standpoint, more for like 5-year-olds.
Is that so? Is the literature they say
Technically, they should be able to, from like if you're evaluating for ADHD and stuff, they should be able to maintain their attention for about 10 minutes. Yeah.
apparently a lot of kids have it.
I know it's. I sort of don't have a lot of expectations with this, but okay, but you guys get the idea that they have very, very low attention spans, right? So that means that to have them in a class like this would be complete torture for everybody, right? So that you
have to keep them engaged.
you have to keep them engaged. You have to keep things
activities.
changing. Different activities, and the classes have got to be short.
Quickly, yeah.
And you're punctuating with snacks and moving around and let's sing a song and then color and then and then greet each other. There's going to be 1,000 different things.
So how long is it for the adults then? I mean, a little bit older, or I guess it's going to be older. More than 15 minutes, more than 20,
So
more than
for
30?
school-aged kids, the attention for one given task is typically about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, so I would say yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really very important Sunday school, because some servants in a younger age, they try to go in the class and try to, but the kids have really limited attention span. This point is very, very critical.
Absolutely.
So I know this is off topic, but grown adults,
Yeah.
do they have that long of an attention?
Well, you
I mean,
guys
does
have
it
kept
go
your
up
attention
or
with
does it go
me
down?
for about, how long do you think you've been here?
No,
Yeah.
a little over an hour.
But does it seriously go up beyond 30 minutes? Like seriously?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
you
don't know
know.
about adults.
Like those 3-hour lecture classes, are they actually something that like?
Yeah, I know.
What?
My guess is probably not, but I don't know. I don't know what the science says about it.
I think there is a reason for having lectures as 50 minutes, right? In the
It may be about
colleges,
an hour.
it's about 50 minutes.
I don't know though.
And not fiction kids.
Probably.
I wish 50 minutes.
It's a good question, but I don't know the answer. Toddlers learn best in an environment that is going to be bold and colorful. Okay. So to have them in a classroom like this would be unreasonable. They need things like that class that we have here, where there's objects and color and their artwork and that kind of thing. You want a classroom that's engaging. They need to be, if you want them to learn and feel comfortable, they need to be in a space that is going to stimulate their mind. And that's going to be colorful, engaging, bold, artistic. Okay? I learned this a while ago, and I just love this fact. On average, toddlers ask how many questions a day, would you guess?
218.
What?
Really?
I counted once.
Are you serious?
And most of those were just why, with nothing else.
437
No.
on average. So over 400 questions a given toddler will ask in a day.
I would throw out 50 being generous.
How did you keep count for
So yeah,
I know.
1,200 and
400. 400.
437.
Yes.
I guess that explains a lot.
Huh? Okay. Take care.
Yeah.
I'll see you next. Yeah. Okay.
I'll go.
Okay, sorry.
All right, and we'll wrap up by just saying I want to share some, like, okay, so then how do you, we know that we want them to learn that God is love, that God is their friend. We want them to learn Bible stories. We want them to get attached to church. How do you teach children about our faith? Well, there are 6 ways that I think are most effective. Lecturing is not one of them. Okay, so this is not what I'm doing now is not working. Discussion group is not one of them. Right? So the number 1 way is going to be imaginative play, role play. So let's say you want to teach the kids about, you know, the wall of Jericho and how it came tumbling down. Well, maybe you would like take building blocks and you'd build the wall together and then you would tumble it down, right? Maybe if you want to teach about Jonah, then you might like, you know, make a little fish costume and one of you will be the fish and the other person will be Jonah, and you know. My mom routinely would, when she taught Sunday school, she would teach little kids. She would have me come in and help her do all kinds of things, all kinds of terrible things that I wouldn't imagine. But one of them was like, she would always, whenever she was teaching about the story of St. Stephen, she would always have me come and be St. Stephen. But the kids would make little stones with paper and they would throw them at me. And I was like, why do you make me do that? Why don't you make one of the kids Stephen? She's like, I don't want them to feel bad.
I just tortured myself.
Yeah, I just tortured my son. And so, yeah, so you want to do things that are interactive and fun and give people a role, make them feel like they're Noah or they're Jonah or whatever. Okay, so imaginative play. Number 2 is going to be to read together. Kids read from fun little books from a very young age, so to read stories about the Bible, to read children's Bible. So toddler appropriate Bible is really your best bet. And so how do you do that? Well, you need to read the same story over and over. Okay, they need the repetition. You want to do voices. You want to make it fun and interactive. You want to stop and you want to have them notice and ask questions. If you're doing the story of Noah and there's animals, you say like, and there's the ark, you explain that the ark is basically a big boat and look how big it is and it's bigger than the animals and it can fit all the animals. You want to stop and explain things as well. So that's how you read, frequently with imagination, with voices. Okay. Another way to do it is very simple crafts. Especially with toddlers, you want to do things that are like one step. So if you want to do a craft about like the creation, you would do something like, you take a black piece of paper and you say, day 1. We're gonna do a craft for the day 1 of creation. You take yellow strips of paper and you glue it on. And that's it. And that's your craft, okay?
Yeah,
so this isn't
paper.
Pinterest worthy, okay? This isn't stuff that we're hanging up on their fridge, but this is stuff just to get them engaged and to play and to learn, okay, well, God created light on day 1, and this is the light that God created, and that's it. That's all I need to know. Okay. Number 4 is to pray together. To pray together is a good way to learn about God. You can talk about prayer, but kids need to learn how to do it, and this is the best way, okay, to do it together. Number 5 is my favorite, to talk about God as part of their day-to-day life. To talk about God as part of their day-to-day life. So you can do this, so when you want to talk about creation, right? So you're taking a walk with the kid or you're just hanging out in a park or whatever. You say like, you know, God created this grass. He created this. He created everything. And, you know, and so you're pointing it out in nature. When the kid has a bad day, you remind them that God could be there to comfort them. When the kid is, you know, so any situation, you try to tie God into it. He, you know, they're enjoying this candy. Well, God gave you the ability to enjoy this candy, and He made the sugar so that you can enjoy it. You know, so these are things that like you can tie back to Him. The 6th one is a little controversial, but I think it's really helpful for kids because sometimes as teachers we need a break. Is movies. There are some really good movie resources to teach kids about Bible stories and about the liturgy. I mean, our church even did this whole thing called Holy Pomoli, you may have heard of, where you can, kids can, there's a cute cartoon of a candle that teaches you about the liturgy, things like that. So movies can be a really engaging way to maintain their attention for longer than 5 to 10 minutes, to teach them a little bit something.
What's that cartoon
too.
called?
Holy Pimoly.
How do you spell that?
I think it's so it's holy and then
I-
Pimoly, I want to say. Yeah.
All right.
And by the way, speaking of liturgy stuff, your books are in the mail. I ordered them. I'm just waiting for them to come in. So I'll give them to you when they come in.
Helpful.
So God's willing, next week I'll get you guys your books.
Thank you.
Sure. So any questions? You guys feel like you'd be ready to work with preschoolers?
No.
No.
I mean, like, maybe conceptually.
Yeah.
I
mean, like I feel like I'll learn on the spot.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing like
Maybe,
just
I
trying to
have
give you a little bit
practice.
of like primer, but all of these kinds of things is just kind of like trial and error.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we stand up for prayer and we'll collect all these things.
Papers.
Thank you guys. Yes.
Pens.
Wow.